Have you ever wondered what a single day could tell us about the state of our entire planet? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're hitting pause on February 27th, 2026 to take a snapshot of the world, see what it was really like, and maybe, just maybe, see what it tells us about where we're all headed.
And it's a pretty fascinating question, right? Because when you zoom in on just one 24-hour period, you start to see all these major forces that are shaping our lives. It's a world where peace talks are happening in the shadow of new wars, where AI is promising incredible progress while also threatening millions of jobs, and where old friendships between countries are constantly being redrawn.
So the picture that starts to form on this specific day is one of immense pressure. The whole global system just feels stretched to its limit. You've got old conflicts simmering, new ones firing up, and the very fabric of our societies being rewoven by these incredibly powerful new technologies.
But out of everything we saw, maybe nothing captures the tension of the day more than these two little words. And this wasn't some metaphor or a warning. This was an official declaration. And it really sets the stage for the first big theme we're going to dive into.
So let's start there. Let's talk about the most traditional and honestly the most dangerous form of global tension, good old military and geopolitical conflict. On this day, there were several hotspots around the world that were just demanding attention.
And here's the quick rundown of the three key flashpoints. In South Asia, a really shocking escalation. Over in the Middle East, a super high-stakes standoff with consequences for everyone. And then in Eastern Europe, a little glimmer of hope in the middle of a long, devastating war.
And yeah, this is that headline. Pakistan's defense ministry went ahead and made it official, declaring open war on the Taliban government in Afghanistan. Now, this didn't just come out of nowhere. It came after months of skirmishes and accusations of exporting terrorism. But making it a formal declaration, that marks a dramatic and really dangerous new phase.
At the same time, in the Middle East, you get a totally different kind of tension. These indirect nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran have basically ground to a halt, and while the diplomats are talking about progress, the White House has made it clear it's not satisfied, and all the while, a huge U.S. military presence keeps the threat of a strike very, very real.
But then, in kind of a stark contrast, we see this flicker of diplomacy over in Eastern Europe. President Zelensky announced that Abu Dhabi is on the table as a possible location for the next round of peace talks with Russia and the U.S. It's a small step, for sure, but a pretty significant one in a war that's now crawling into its fifth year.
And this number, wow, this just perfectly illustrates the absolutely staggering cost of that war. On the very same day, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, approved another $8.1 billion loan for Ukraine. That's just one piece of a massive international support package that totals over $136 billion, a figure that really hammers home the immense economic burden of this thing.
But you know, conflict today isn't just fought with soldiers and tanks. On February 27th, we can see the new battlegrounds really clearly. They were digital and they were financial. The weapons are code and capital, and believe me, the stakes are just as high.
Okay, what's so interesting here is the clash of titans this represents. On one side, you've got the AI firm Anthropic, taking this firm moral stand, refusing to let its technology be weaponized. And on the other side, you have the Pentagon, demanding access for national defense. This is a huge, landmark fight over who gets to control the future of warfare.
And the fallout from this AI revolution, it isn't just some abstract debate. On this exact day, a major U.S. tech firm announced it was laying off thousands of employees, and they explicitly said the plan was to replace them with artificial intelligence. So the key thing here is, this isn't a future problem. It is happening right now.
And here's where the old conflicts and these new battlegrounds just perfectly intersect. That standoff with Iran we were just talking about, well, it is directly hitting your wallet. The fear of a potential U.S. strike has pushed the price of Brent crude oil a full $10 above what analysts think its fair value should be. It just goes to show how deeply interconnected everything is.
And all this interconnectedness is also forcing nations to constantly rethink their friendships and their rivalries. So our next theme is all about that shifting global chessboard, where alliances are being both created and seriously tested.
And we get two fantastic examples of this diplomatic dance on this one day. First, you have Indian Prime Minister Modi addressing the Israeli Knesset, officially upgrading their relationship to a critical technology partnership. At the very same time, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is also in India, but his mission is totally different. He's there to patch up a strained relationship and find new trade partners.
But you know, maybe the most significant shift of all isn't happening between governments, but inside a population. A brand new Gallup poll dropped on this day, And it showed that for the first time ever, American public sympathy in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has reached a dead heat, 50-50. That is a seismic shift. It could signal a major change in future U.S. foreign policy, making unconditional support for any one side a lot more complicated back home.
But while all these nations are trying to manage their relationships with the outside world, many of them are dealing with some deep and troubling pressures right at home. And that brings us to our final theme for the day, the internal fractures that are weakening institutions from the inside out.
You know, the ghost of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal just continues to haunt the global elite. On this day, it claimed a big one. The CEO of the World Economic Forum resigned over past links. At the same time, back in the U.S., a House investigation had both Bill and Hillary Clinton providing testimony. It just shows the incredible and persistent reach of this scandal.
These internal pressures are also creating brand new security challenges. With the FIFA World Cup getting closer, the host nations, the US, Canada, and Mexico, started getting millions in funding to fight a very modern threat, the potential use of commercial drones for attacks. It's forcing a complete rethink of how to keep massive public events safe. And some of these internal fractures are, well, they're nothing short of a humanitarian catastrophe. In the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, authorities made a truly horrifying discovery: 2 mass graves in an area that was recently held by M23 rebels. It's just a grim, grim sign of a brutal conflict that continues to rage far from the world's headlines. And finally, the thing about these internal threats is they often refuse to respect borders. Cuba actually contacted U.S. officials about an alleged terrorist infiltration attempt, which they claim started from a boat leaving U.S. territory. It's just a stark reminder of how quickly a domestic problem can become an international incident.
So after looking at just one day, what do we have? We have open war, AI disruption, shifting alliances, and these deep internal fractures. And all of these crises, they're connected, they're feeding into each other. Which really leaves us with one last crucial question to think about. In a world that looks like this, where does stability even come from? And what on earth will tomorrow bring?